G&T show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Are friends with benefits?
Speaking of having a good time, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Dayton broke the G&T show. This is now the David Mack
Appreciation Hour. You assholes.
What is it about this guy that people love him so much? With his purple velvet cape and his crown. I thought it was a little much when he had us carry him in the studio on a throne. I am awesome! Look what I have done! Look what I have brought upon the world!
There is an urge to go, nya, 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 nya.
I heard rumors that you might be working on something else, but we won't prod much. I was gonna say
I'm gonna pry a little.
Dare you! How dare you ask me to change it? Do you not understand the majesty of my genius? And the guy sitting next to me looked at me like he was, like I'd cramped in his hat.
Yeah, it's the professionalism that sells the show. That's right.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. How are you? How do you be? What's going on? Jolan True. Welcome to this G&T Supplemental Log. This is Nick, Gettysburg 7, and to my left, your right, wearing her little her Kaylee coveralls like Firefly, as she's been working on a computer. It's Terry Lynn.
Hello, everyone.
And to my right, your left, wearing his, I'm not sure what that is. I think he's going for being Jane, but I'm not quite sure. It's Ceridium.
Kapla. Jane? Did you say Jane?
Yeah, from Firefly.
Firefly, have you?
I have seen Firefly. I just was making sure that was the Jane you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, I like big guns, and I cannot lie.
No, I'm talking about Jane Russell, which compared to somebody,
Yeah, hey, not bad way to go. All right.
And let's join our special guest. He's been currently his new occupation is applying for the Evel Knievel Hall of Fame. It's Scott Pearson.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Very, very glad to have you back.
Of course, a member of the First Generation Geek podcast with his amazing and lovely better half of the show, his daughter.
Terry, this is the first time you've actually sat down with Scott during an interview, correct?
It is. I was unavailable the last time we got to meet with Generations Geek. You guys always cover for me. Thank you.
Right, yeah. They're like our Gary Shandling in the Rivers. Oh, God.
That's great. Well, welcome back,
right
Scott. I'm so pleased to talk to you and to actually kind of meet you in person or online, so to speak. I'm just very thrilled to have you back. I'm so excited. So
I'm happy to be here.
You've been a busy man.
I have been.
Filling out insurance forms is quite taxing.
Yeah.
I cracked myself up.
I did too.
Go ahead, Scott. What have you have a new novel out, correct?
My ebook, The More Things Change, an original series novella, came out sometime this summer. I forget the date. Yep.
I finished reading it a couple days ago, a couple nights ago. Very good story. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Is this the one you spoiled on the air, or was that?
No.
Oh, no.
That was a different one.
Yeah, Mike tells us the plot and then goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that."
It was relevant to the conversation.
It was. By the way,
some of
Scott,
our
you're now
listeners-
talking to the most hated man in Star Trek podcasting right now.
Oh, no, not by me, and that's all that matters. Remember that.
No, I'm more hated than have at this point.
I'll just leave that one lie. For some of our listeners who may not know, Scott is the author of Star Trek, the original series e-novella, The More Things Change, which came out, in June? No, yeah,
Something
June.
like that. Yeah.
And how is that going? The sales of that one, how did it go?
Oh, I actually have no idea.
Oh, you don't? I was going to say, don't authors know, or do you even pay attention? But that would be kind of weird. Do you even pay attention?
A little bit. I mean, eventually I'll get some sort of statement. that shows sales. You know, I can't remember if they're quarterly or what, but I get statements from Simon & Schuster on the sales of all my Star Trek books. And
is that like the 6 cent statement?
Yeah.
That's better than the, you owe us 45 cents.
Yeah. So I sometimes I look closely at them, and sometimes I don't. But I haven't gotten one yet for this one, so I don't know how it's doing.
Well, I can testify that I enjoyed the book. It involves Christine Chapel, Spock, and Dax. Which Dax is it? It's I should know this.
You just told me.
You said it Sunday on the show. You said it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep them straight.
Audred? I know there's so many of them. I think it's Audred. No. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they kept referring to her as Commissioner or Dax. So it was like, okay. But yeah, so it's got a Dax, it's got a Spock, and it's got a Christine.
Yes.
So I have to ask.
It sounds like a butt of a joke, but
is this the same Dax that figures out that McCoy has the hands of a surgeon?
This is after.
Ah, bummer.
This is after. But McCoy is at the very, very beginning, and there's like a comment that's made. I'm sorry. So yeah, we that lets us know that it's post that event.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
It's place. Oh, go ahead.
It's set 6 months or so after the events of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and the Dax that knew McCoy was back when he was in med school or something.
That's right. That's right. I remember that now. Okay. Yeah.
So he's more experienced now.
Well, kind of on the same line. I mean, here's another question for you. I don't think we've ever asked one of our authors this before. Do you pay attention to reviews, Scott?
Well, it's a mixed bag. You know, it's when you come across good reviews, it's fun to pay attention to them. But there's always the bad reviews, and of course.
Oh, I took them all down.
Some of the. And of course, some people give very considered reviews, and you might read a review that by someone who didn't particularly like your work, and you might say, "Oh, they have a point. I wish I had done this or that a little bit differently. It might have come across better." But then there are the ones that are just, I happened to notice some reviews for The More Things Change. I wasn't setting out to read reviews, but I was just taking a look on Amazon to see if there were any reviews posted, because I just wanted to see if the book was starting to get out there and people were starting to read it. Mm-hmm. And the first review I laid eyes on said, "This is the worst Star Trek book ever."
Oh my God.
Oh my.
And so you really don't want to pay attention to those kinds of reviews, but
now, is that all they said, or did they give like some kind of analysis after, or was that just it? It was just like, "This is the worst ever."
I think there might have been,
not to make you go through all of this all over again.
No,
it's also subjective, because they did make a few comments, and they were saying, the characters don't sound at all like themselves. They don't sound right, etc., etc. And then of course the next review was by someone who liked the book, and they said, "Oh, I love this book because the characters sound exactly like they're supposed to." So we all have our own versions of these characters in our head that we filter things through. And so the thing is that as a writer, you're never going to please everyone. And so that there are going to be people that don't like the book. And so when people say, "Oh, I don't like this for this reason or that reason," generally it's not, hurtful or anything. You just see it and you're like, yep, that's part of the game.
What advice can you give to some of our listeners who are aspiring writers or hobby writers in how to deal with that, how to grow the thicker skin, how to take good criticism and how to ignore the bullshit? I mean, how do you what advice can you give? How do you do it? How do you find your way around those landmines?
It's always a challenge. I usually don't read reviews because it can be quite painful. Mm-hmm. especially on the internet. We all know how people behave on the internet. And and when you're working within the genre that we work, there are very dedicated, very vocal fans. And
you think?
and so it can get pretty harsh. And so, that's one reason to kind of avoid things, particularly if you're not in a place where you're able to let those things just fall away. But it is important to be able to listen to criticism, because that's the only way you can improve as a writer. As long as you're getting something that's phrased more constructively, something that provides specific details. And so I don't know if I have any advice how to make it easy. I mean, it's just something that it comes with experience. The longer you go through it,
it gets easier.
It gets easier. I think one thing that can make it easier, perhaps, is if you're in writers' groups, if you have friends or acquaintances or peers that are willing to read your work and give you honest feedback, whether it's for good or not, and so that you can hear stuff from people you trust who are going to tell it to you diplomatically to try to help you find your way toward bettering your craft. The more you do that, you become more confident about your abilities, and then you get into a position where you're more comfortable dismissing some of the harsher criticisms, because you know that it's just someone blowing off steam at something that they didn't like, and you can just kind of let it fall away.
Nice.
Who do you feel like you have the best handle on their voice? That you feel.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'll name a specific character, but I would say the original series is probably the one that I feel most comfortable with. That's the one I grew up with. That's always going to hold a very special place for me. I was very pleased to be able to write those characters for this, because even though I consider myself an across-the-board Star Trek fan, I do have this special love for the original series, and just by chance, most of the things that I've had published have been more Next Generation based. And I had a lot of fun writing those, and particularly when they're set within the time frame of the TV series, I felt like I had a handle on those Next Generation characters as well. As they've gone further beyond the movies, I feel a little bit more out of touch with them. But the original guys, those are the ones I really gravitate to as a writer.
Right on.
Now, one of the things that you just recently posted on Facebook is the fact that you were a freelance copy editor on Star Trek The Next Generation Takedown, which is a new book coming up from John Jackson Miller. And, it's very possible that a lot of people don't know what a copy editor does. Can you explain that to our listeners?
Sure. A copy editor.
That's a beast of a job.
Well, and it depends. There are also degrees of copy editing. You can talk about a light copy edit, or a medium copy edit, or a heavy copy edit. And so a lot of it has to do with what the editor is looking for. The editor might be looking for just a...
If that's my agent, tell them that I'm not here.
It's the University of Idaho. Sorry.
So
I told my agent I couldn't work tonight. So.
You might just be looking for grammatical errors, obvious things like that, grammatical errors, missing punctuation, those very sorts of, mechanical parts of the process. If you're doing a heavier copy edit, you might be looking more closely at readability and sentence structure and that sort of thing. But so in general, what you're trying to do is just put the final polish on a manuscript. It's by the time the copy editor gets it, it's already gone through other people's hands. It's the story is done, and you're just kind of cleaning up around the edges. And then anything that you might miss, then hopefully is going to be caught by the last person, the proofreader, who is really just looking for the smallest little errors and dropouts that happen, missing periods, that sort of thing.
Okay, so how many typical levels of editing does a regular manuscript go through?
Well, it varies from book to book, but a sort of common route that a manuscript takes is it goes to the in-house editor, perhaps the same person who acquired the book, and that person reads through it and sees if there's anything that they think it needs, and that can be pretty hands-on editing depending on the writer. In my previous day job, when I worked for a military history imprint called Zenith Press, I was often working on memoirs of veterans, and so I would be working with people who were first-time writers. And so sometimes then the manuscripts needed a little bit more help because the person had never written a long, a book-length thing before. And so then there the editor helps the writer shape the manuscript in sometimes some pretty significant ways.
I'm sure.
But then once the editor has finished that, that's often referred to as a content edit. It's a really big, pretty, it can be a pretty hands-on edit where you're maybe moving chapters around or cutting out significant things or explaining to the author that there's significant things that need to be added to help the reader. And then after that goes back and forth between the editor and the author. Then it's ready to go to a copy editor. And then after the copy editor, it's ready to go to the proofreader. So there's usually at least 3 main levels. There's the content edit, the copy edit, and then the proofread.
Is there a particular duty you prefer? I mean, outside of writing yourself. I said duty, yes.
I really do enjoy editing on any level. I used to think that I wouldn't. When I was first started as a writer, I thought to myself that I never wanted to work as an editor. I just thought that would be that it would take away all my energy for writing, or that it would, I wasn't sure because of course I hadn't ever done it before, so I had these preconceptions that I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that as a day job. I want a day job that's anything else, and then I'll do my writing. And then I kind of stumbled in to editing because a friend of mine started up his own small publishing company and asked me if I would do some editing for him, and I did. And I started finding that I really quite liked it. And then it led to eventually getting a day job at MBI. Well, the company went through some name changes and stuff while I was there, but what eventually became Zenith Press, the imprint that I worked for Quarto, then I was there for several years doing a variety of levels of editing. And it's really can be quite satisfying to help an author get to his or her best manuscript. It's if any of you that have done writing, you know how important it is to have other people read your stuff because it's so easy to miss things in your own work.
Yeah.
And so when you can step in and help a writer find the good things and the bad things and the missing things and get that polish on the manuscript so it's the best it can be, it's really satisfying. And I also found that it's being an editor is often much more analytical as opposed to being more creative when you're being a writer. Mm-hmm. And so I discovered that it didn't really drain my energy in the way that I thought it would. I could spend a day editing and then come home and start writing my own stuff, and it wasn't a problem. And in fact,
go ahead.
Well, it helps. It helps your own writing when you're editing other stuff and developing that mindset of being able to be an editor. It makes it easier to edit your own stuff, and it also is just more practice. Just like the more you write, the better you can get at writing. The more you edit, the better you can get at editing and at writing. It's just all great experience.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So you find yourself almost having using a different part of your brain at any given time. Being the more analytical editor allows you for that and doesn't hinder the freedom of the creativity.
Yes.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. What other books have you, outside of Star Trek, have you edited?
Oh, man.
Should I start
50 Shades of Grey.
I've done, well, when I was at Zenith Press, I worked on primarily military history.
That's amazing.
And edited in various levels dozens and dozens of titles over several years' work.
Now, are those like Osprey Press type books?
No, the imprint that I worked for, most of my books were more, full-size narrative books. And we did do some books that were more heavily illustrated that were kind of in Osprey territory, but not much. Ours were usually more substantive books.
Osprey's really carved out the niche for that.
Yeah. And I don't mean that as a slam against Osprey.
No.
Because they do very targeted books that are, they're great little books. And part of the reason we didn't do things that were more like Osprey is because Osprey does them so well.
And for those that don't know, Osprey Press, what they do is, if you're a Star Trek geek, like let's say the Romulan Warbird Technical Manual, or the history of Klingon Special Forces, that kind of thing. Very graphics heavy, or uniforms of they have a book, Uniforms of the Waffen SS, and that's all it is, and it tells the evolution of it and everything. And a lot of reenactors buy their stuff. A lot of modelers buy their stuff.
Oh, okay, cool. And
because it's just that kind of thing.
And so what Scott worked on, what you were working on, was more of a narrative, nonfiction history?
Right.
Okay.
And sometimes there would be memoirs by the actual veterans themselves. Other times it would be overviews of various aspects of World War II or whatever written by other authors. I did work primarily on World War II stuff, but did some Vietnam, did some World War I. I was all over the place. Sure. We also did some science and technology books. I did a book called The Space Shuttle, which was an overview of the entire space shuttle program, and that was written by Piers Bizzoni, who recently did an amazing The Making of 2001: A Space Odyssey for Taschen. That is the coolest book that you will never own, because it was done in a limited edition, and it's like the book cost, I don't know, $750 or something.
Holy cow.
Wow.
But it was
Is Larry Nemechek behind that? Good Lord.
No, you just look it up.
So much.
Look it up. It was published by Taschen, the famous international art publisher, and it's 4 volumes that slip into a little metal case that's that looks like the monolith of 2001, and a couple of the books are landscape oriented, and a couple of them are portrait oriented, and it's just loaded with pictures and artwork and amazing stories. And it is just the most beautiful book you'll see. But yeah, it was a limited edition, quite pricey. And I'm hoping that it's going to come out in a different, 1-volume sort of mass market kind of edition that other people will be able to get. But Taschen usually puts out books, like the first edition comes out and it's the extra special collector's edition.
The shiny one.
Yes. And but yeah, I'd worked with Piers on some other titles as well back at Zenith Press, and then that led to me just recently. Piers and I were hired by Zenith Press to co-write the 2015 brochure for the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask about that. Yes. So, so what is? You said it's a brochure. Now, when I think of a brochure, I'm thinking those little foldable.
You're thinking like a trifold, right?
Yeah. Well, then this isn't that, is it?
No, it's
like more like a program you would get.
It's more like it's like a big magazine, and it talks about all the stuff that you can see at the Kennedy Space Center. and it provides a historical context for the items that you're seeing. And I'm not really sure how widely available it's going to be, because I'm not sure if it's the kind of thing that they'll be selling in their gift shops and stuff, or if it's... I see. But that's kind of what I think it is going to be.
That's kind of cool.
And yeah, it was great. I mean, we got flown down to Florida for a week, and we went 5 or 6 days in a row to the Kennedy Space Center visitor complex.
I'm so sorry.
And
dirty job. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. And got to see all the cool stuff that have any of you guys ever been down there?
Yes, I have. My husband and I got to travel there. Oh, during it actually has a great story. It was the week that Scott Senator, what was his name?
John Glenn.
John Glenn. It was the week that he was supposed to go back up.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And we got there, and Hurricane George came through, and so we were at the Kennedy Center the day they were supposed to roll the space shuttle out, and unfortunately it got delayed by a day. And we thought, okay, well, then they had to roll it back in to the big building. They had to roll it back into the big building the day or 2 days after that because of the hurricane. And then after the hurricane went through, they had to roll it back out. So we flew home the day before they actually took off. Oh. I was very upset I missed it.
Yeah.
But we got to sign the big card for him.
Oh, nice.
There was like a huge 20-foot, greeting card for him in the front of the Kennedy Space Center. We all got to sign it. It was pretty fun.
It's
a neat
great
place
down there. Yeah, and now they have the Space Shuttle Atlantis on display there.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, and it's really amazing. Now this is the second shuttle I've gotten to see because I was at Udvar-Hazy a few years ago and got to see Discovery, which is on display there.
Wait a minute, when you guys came up for shore leave, you and the girl didn't go to Dulles and see Enterprise before they moved it?
Well, he saw it afterwards, it sounds like.
Yeah, we I can't remember if we were out there while Enterprise was there, but
it was like 3 years ago. I think you were.
But the last time we were there, we went to see Discovery, so Enterprise was already gone.
Oh, okay.
And so we saw Discovery, and then now I got to see Atlantis, and the display is just amazing because they've got it it's mounted up, so it's at an angle.
Oh, wow.
And the cargo bay doors are open, and the arm is stretched out. I mean, it's really displayed as though it's in space in the middle of doing something.
Right on.
And it looks amazing.
Oh, that's
so for this particular project, you had to go and speak to, I'm sure you probably spoke to a few people, got some interesting stories for the book.
On background, we talked to a lot of people that work there. It was very exciting. It's it's an energizing time for NASA now that they're moving forward with some of the companies that are going to be, like SpaceX, and then NASA has its own new crew capsule, the Orion, and they're moving forward on those tests, and they're really kind of re-energized down there after the sort of lull that they were in for a while after the space shuttle program wrapped up. Right. And a number of the people that we spoke to, there was a whole bunch of people there. We'd say, how long have you been here? And they'd say, oh, I've been here 6 months, or I've been here 9 months, or a year or something. And it just was showing how much things are kind of ramping up again down there.
Boy, that's nice to hear.
That there's more and more people coming in. And so it was an exciting time to be down there and talk to the people. But since the magazine or brochure, whatever you want to call it, since that is geared toward what the regular tourist is going to see when they come down there, we didn't, that's really what we focused on. It was just going and seeing the displays as they are, so that we would be able to just report on what the regular person is going to experience. So even though we spoke to a number of people behind the scenes, we were really just focused on having the same experience that anyone does.
That's really neat.
Yeah, and the thing that was really great for us as opposed to the average person on vacation is that we were there for several days in a row. There's so much to see, and I think that a lot of people on vacation and probably only go there a day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much to see. I would really recommend to people that to try to make at least 2 days in your schedule to go there, because there are these bus tours that you can take that drive you around Kennedy Space Center out to various launch pads and historic sites. And the bus tours are a couple hours, even 3 hours long. And so if you're only going there a day, maybe you get in one bus tour and then spend the rest of your time at the visitor complex looking at the displays and stuff. And that's it. But if you go a couple of days, and you can get in a couple of bus tours and really see all these sites.
Very cool. Well, I've learned my lesson. I definitely want to go back, and I would definitely want to spend more time there. And when do you believe that the brochure will be published for purchase there?
It'll be out sometime in the spring of next year, I believe. And like I said, I'm not really quite sure what the distribution is going to be, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be the kind of thing that you're going to go into just any bookstore and find.
Right.
It's either going to be it's going to be distributed through their website, or if you're at gift shops down at the Kennedy Space Center, or maybe in the airports around, in Orlando or something, is where you'll find it. But it was, it was a lot of fun to work on.
So it's not unlike anything you would purchase at, say, say a national park or something. It would be the same type of informative, fun memento that you could take home. Okay.
Yeah.
That's neat. I think that's really wonderful.
It's kind of a blend between a memento and a visitor's guide. It would be helpful for someone to have before they went there, because they can really get a good idea of what there is to see and what they might want to prioritize for their own interests.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Right on.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to ask, moving back to some of your copy editing work for Takedown.
Yeah.
You said that this was a contract job. So does that mean that interested parties can hire your services?
Yes. However...
The caveat.
The caveat is right now I am so busy on so many projects that I'm really not available. But yes, I'm a freelance editor. That's what I'm trying to. That and my writing is what I would like to make a living off. Right now, I also have a part-time day job because it's hard to make a living as a freelancer. And so, I've done work on people's self-published novels and that sort of thing. I've also done some work for people who just wanted another pair of eyes to look over their manuscript before they sent it to their regular publisher. And because sometimes
it doesn't hurt having as many eyes as you can. Looking at your script. Yeah.
I prefer O's or E's looking at them, but that's just me. Sometimes Y.
Oh.
A question for you. In the course of getting the word out about your book and marketing it and pimping it in general, and I don't mean that in a bad way, as you well know, describe the difference in trying to do an ebook, say, versus I call them terrestrial books, but a hard book. Because you can't sign them, you can't have them stacked in front of you at a table.
It's a challenge.
Convention. Yeah.
It's a challenge that I don't know that I've entirely figured out how to do it. And I think a lot of people perhaps haven't figured out how to do it because we're in an industry that is changing so much every day.
Our mutual friend Kelly Medding is having trouble with the same thing.
Yeah, it provides a whole new set of challenges for writers, and it sometimes feels like we're all just making it up as we go along, just trying to do something. One thing that I did was I was a writer guest at Convergence this last summer. Convergence is a giant convention here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and it was a little frustrating that my newest book couldn't be there, stacked on the table. So I have all these, I had a signing table, and I happened to get to share my time at the signing table with the author Wesley Chu. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Have you read any of his books? Any of you?
I have not, no.
Nah, great guy. It was fun getting to know him sitting there at the table. But I've got all my books spread out in front of me, and and I'm kind of noticing how some of my books, I've had some authors' copies that I've had for a while, and they're ancient. It's like some of my first Star Trek publications were, back in the 90s, I think. It's like
back in the
20th
old
century.
cable days. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're looking, kind of yellowed and everything, and it's and I wish that I could have that shiny new book out there, but I couldn't. But one thing I did was I just I had an image of the cover, and I printed up bookmarks, and so
That's an idea.
and then I had those tucked into all my other books, and I had a stack of them that I could hand out to people, and so that's one thing. And I've heard of software. I've heard of some sort of software program that allows you to somehow sign electronic books that you can like stick an image of your signature into the book. But the thing is that your publishing company, whoever is publishing your book, has to cooperate with this third party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think many of them are doing that. And so it leaves you in a place where it can feel really hard to promote the book when you're face to face. When you're online, of course, you can post the picture of the
give them
cover
the link on
and,
where to
and
buy it.
give them the link and all, and do all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, it seems as if the ebook the ebook works better in the virtual or the digital realm. Social media, where you can throw up photos, you can talk about it, where you can share anecdotes from it. It just seems that is a more appropriate venue, for lack of a better term, in order to sell or to pitch the product. But you're right. There aren't any real good ways for signing. I mean, you can snap a photo of a signature and email it to somebody and say, here you go. But
it's not the same. And
it's not the same.
Book
you lose
readers
that.
Will not. Yeah, exactly. You do lose it.
Yeah, you lose that tactile, thing that, for the same reason that some of us really love print books for that feel of having it in your hand and turning the pages and the smell of old paper and, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
There's something special about turning to the right page and signing your name in the book. And just a digital copy, it doesn't have the same, doesn't have the same value. It doesn't have the same emotional.
It doesn't have the same. Yeah, it doesn't have the same emotional connection.
That said, I don't want to sound like I'm like raining on the ebook parade, because I love the idea of ebooks. I love that people can get the books and have it there in their on their phone, on their pad, whatever, with them wherever they go, and
it's probably the most convenient format.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
because
I do have to ask this.
I've got 500 books on my phone.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse for me not to read when I have a spare minute.
Right.
And I take advantage of it.
But I was thinking about this when I was driving back from Kentucky, because it was 10-hour drive, so you get a lot of time to think. And do you think that one of the downsides is when something is ebook only, that technology is awesome, but if something were to happen to whatever file or whatever, or there was some kind of problem, you could lose all of the ebook only, whereas that's with hard copy, that's not a problem. You've got people like Neil Gaiman talks about copies of Nevermore that have been handed down from parent to kid, or you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Whereas like my son, I was really happy when I gave him for Christmas or for his birthday my copy that I bought in the 8th grade of Salem's Lot. And I can't can't do that with Kindle because it's like you were saying. And again, I think the ebook is an amazing format, especially for somebody just starting out. It's almost like, because you can self-publish and all of that, it's almost like doing a 10-minute indie film, if that makes any sense.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody that makes a short film, like a Sophia Coppola did before she became huge, or like Rose McGowan does now, and people like that.
I, for one, am hoping for the ultimate in freedom. Who knows what will come of it? And I realize there's a lot of copyright and royalty issues that need to be cleared up beforehand. But I, for one, would love to be able to take, say, an ebook that all of a sudden I really like. I mean, the one thing I do appreciate about ebooks right now is I get them, and I don't feel the pressure to go out and buy a hard copy book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if I read it and I go, oh, I really, really like this one, I usually end up going out and buying a hard copy book because I like that tactile connection.
It looks good on our bookshelf.
I do like the word tactile. It's a good word. And I would really love the freedom to be able to say, okay, I've purchased this ebook. Wouldn't it be great if by just the mere fact that I have purchased this ebook, now I have a key, I could take it to my local library who could print it for me? God, that would be awesome.
But that would be awesome. Doesn't the way the system's going now, let's say your name is, I don't know, Bill Jacobs, and Bill Jacobs has signed a book deal with Shibber and Shabber, and signed it for like a couple of book deals. They did the first, let's say, 3 books. The first book comes out, it does okay, but they didn't do any marketing or anything other than, say, put out a tweet on it. And then they say, well, your next 2 books are going to be ebook only. Isn't that a way for them to kind of cut back on some expenses and to just kind of build a stable as well?
I would have to say, sure, yeah, that's exactly what that is. I mean, I don't know per se. I don't have that first-person experience that maybe Scott and other people do with regards to how the publishing industry, he himself said it, and the publishing industry is changing
really
on a daily basis.
Here too.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is there's a lot of expense that goes in to a book that isn't related to the printing, because whether a book is printed or electronic, you're paying the writer, you're paying the editor, you're paying the copy editor, you're paying the proofer, you're paying the designer. And so one thing that's easy for people to overlook is that there's still a lot of expenses that go into that ebook. And so when people like when people complain about, why aren't ebooks cheaper or what, it's a lot more complicated than it might seem. But that said, I mean, boy, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're in a time where we're moving into ebooks, and I think that people of a certain age, like myself, sometimes, even though I'm super geeky and love computers and technology and all this stuff, I grew up with print books, and it does make it hard to give those up and move forward. But there's so many, there's pros and cons to everything,
right.
And so it's so hard to know where things are going. And
I'll admit it. What I really want is I want my Star Trek world. I want the ability to do everything I need to do on a pad. But if I really want to, I can go over to my replicator and get the book.
Yeah. Like
Picard did. He always read his books.
Yeah.
That's what I want in my world. I want the ability to have it all. Damn it, why can't that happen?
I think as time goes on, there is going to be that evolution.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, the print on demand is fairly young service. The so-called the not the replicators, but the 3D printing, I mean, that technology is still brand spanking new. So given enough time, I'm sure there will be ways to kind of sort of be able to do that. But the industry needs to figure out what works the best. I mean, whether it's giving a credit, or as Terry had mentioned earlier, a key, or just offering a discount or something, because there is going to be a necessary cost involved on top of the book for a printed version. I would imagine. Yeah. Because paper and ink isn't cheap. Last time I looked. But still, it is a young industry. There's still a lot to figure out, and I think
problem is we need the mob involved.
Nick, you have the most creative answers.
Calling it like I see it.
But I think the ebook is just the first step, and there's going to be growing pains along the way before we actually figure it out.
Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't.
What the hell does Alan Thicke have to do with this?
Oh, I love you, Nick. Sometimes I love you. I just want to. Anyways,
you know how much of our audience is going, what the hell does that mean? Alan Thicke.
Exactly.
Isn't he the guy that twerked with Miley? I don't know.
No, that's his son, Robin. Alan Thicke played the father on the show Growing Pains.
I remember that show.
Yeah, Robin Thicke.
I just didn't know that was his son. Yeah. Okay.
He also was one of the great 80s sitcom theme song writers. He wrote the Different Strokes theme song, The Facts of Life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's Canadian. Just saying.
Scott's cracking up.
Well, Scott's from Minnesota, so he may as well be in Canada. Is it snowing up there?
No, well, yeah.
It snowed here today.
We've got snow, and only a little bit. The kid was very disappointed on Sunday. They were forecasting we're going to have 15 inches of snow, and so she was just sort of going around the house chanting "Snow day, snow day, snow day," and then the storm, as it moved eastward across Minnesota, it literally broke in two, and part of it went south of the Twin Cities, and part of it went north, and so we got 2 inches of snow.
Oh, so it was like the Vikings' defensive line.
Oh, well played.
And so it just kind of turned cold and icy.
Yeah, well, we had today driving home. We had sleet and light snow. So yay, first of the season. And you know what? People still drive like assholes. Another year of that. Imagine.
Well,
hey,
yes?
I was wondering. I'm not saying we have to.
Yes.
But we've had a marvelous discussion.
I know, it's very weird. I don't like it.
And it veered rapidly away from the more things change.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to know if you had any other questions about that you wanted to ask.
Oh, you mean the
I love
don't have to.
Brings it back on track for us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Kind of crazy ass marketing is that?
Well, the more things change, again, is for our listeners who may just be joining us, although they can't imagine that they would be just picking up and go, I'll forewind through most of this. Yeah. The original series, The More Things Change ebook, which was released a few months ago, is available at your favorite booksellers, typically Amazon, electronic booksellers, and iBooks.
How soon after the motion picture is this set?
I believe.
See, I pay attention.
I believe I called it about 6 months. And it's hard to. It's so hard to fit something into the chronology. It's kind of
go back and look at the Marvel and the DC comics that took place after.
No, there's so much stuff that you can't try to fit into everything. I was looking at Christopher Bennett's stuff. I wanted to kind of.
It's great stuff.
Yeah, I was
Enterprise stuff.
No, his stuff that's set right after the motion picture.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't contradict anything that he had written. I wanted to kind of drop my story sort of right in there somewhere, because it was kind of important to have it relatively soon after Star Trek the Motion Picture, because I was having Spock still kind of processing the revelations that he had with his contact with V'ger, and I was having Chapel, sort of going through stuff, wondering about her position on the Enterprise now that McCoy was there. So it needed to be shortly after Star Trek the Motion Picture, but I wanted to push it forward enough that there was still room for Christopher's books in there, and I think it mostly fits in there. you might have to kind of look the other way and whistle here and there to get all those little fiddly Star Trek details to line up. It can be, I mean, even us super Star Trek geeks that read all the books and stuff, it's so hard to remember every little detail in this huge universe and try to keep it.
That's why we have Marco Palmieri.
Yeah. And so yeah, that was one of the challenges of the book, was just picking out where it was set exactly.
Well, I have to admit, when I was reading the book, and I enjoyed your take of Dax, what was going on with her, and it actually sparked a debate in Skype channel between me and some friends about the lifespan of an average Trill.
Oh my God! And the NSA went, really? We really have to continue listening to them?
Well, you kind of had there was one line in particular that had sparked it, and it was the idea that you had put forward that sometimes for lack of a better term, the connection between host and symbiont isn't as strong as it should be.
Oh, well, that happened in the show.
Yes,
when they took over to take the symbiont out of Dax and put it in that other dude. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And so we were wondering, we started.
Sorry.
So we were debating on whether or not the lifespan of an average Trill was as long as, say, a human in the 24th century, and we were. Well, I was having the feeling that if the average Trill who's not joined probably does live as long, but with a symbiont they probably didn't. Do you have any thoughts?
Why would the symbiont make it?
I know that was kind of weird, but
why would the symbiont make it not as long, Mike? I don't understand.
Because symbionts are reckless, man. I'll tell you. They're just reckless. They're reckless little slugs. They get in there and they think, woohoo, I have appendages now. I have appendages now, and I'm going to make these appendages do really crazy things.
Okay, maybe for the first life, but when you're in your sixth or seventh...
Dax is crazy. That's a crazy little slug. How many... I'm just saying.
Okay, Dax, but wait a minute. Hold on. Jadzia wasn't crazy.
No, but Dax was.
She was a risk taker.
She was totally a risk taker.
But what Esri wasn't.
Not.
We only saw her 1 year.
I'm just saying. I've read her. She's the captain of the Aventine. She's nuts.
Okay, yeah, you've read.
No, he is.
Please,
Dax is crazy. I love it.
Actually, I've never really pondered that detail, and it's one of those things that there's lots of room to debate it because we don't have a great deal of information that's been, do I dare use the C word, canon. When you look at what we've been told in the TV series,
right.
I don't think that they've ever really addressed the lifespan of a Trill in any specific terms, so it makes it hard. And when you're writing official Star Trek fiction, I mean, one of the rules of the game, of course, is that you can't contradict what's, for the most part, you can't contradict anything that's on screen. And so you find yourself, you're only thinking about things, not only, but I mean, you really think about things through that.
And I think the most important thing to remember is never go faster than warp 10, otherwise you turn into a salamander.
Yeah. And so, as far as this particular book, when I was working on it, I didn't really think much. I was looking at the Dax characters as they've been portrayed in the series or in the books, because I did maintain continuity with a couple of the earlier books. I'll do some name dropping because shout out to Mike Friedman and S.D. Perry, because their stories in the Lies of Dax anthology.
I love him.
Yeah, Mike Friedman's Old Souls and S.D. Perry's Sins of the Mother. I maintained continuity with those and did specific references there because, so I had Audred that as a character in my story, and so you need to give her some sort of details and backstory. And so I could have done, come up with my own stuff. But the fan in me likes those continuity, the connections. And so I decided, well, Mike and S.D. Perry had both created great backstories for those particular, their incarnations of Dax. And so I thought, why not just use the stuff that's already there? So I drew that in. And because for me, the importance of the Dax character in this particular story was drawing in things from her life that sort of connected to Chapel's doubts about her decisions in the past and what sort of decisions she had to make about what she was going to do in her future. And who better to have questions about past and future than a Dax? So
no kidding.
That brings a question that I've had is I really like the idea of Christine having been the nurse that we all know and loved on, the 5-year mission, and then of course she's a doctor in the motion picture. What gave you the idea to have her be doubting, or just anxious about her future, maybe is a better way of saying it, during the launch of, I guess, the second 5-year mission?
Yeah, well, this developed out of my pitching ideas with Margaret Clark, my editor. And the interesting story behind that is when you go through the pitching process, you're kicking ideas back and forth. Things can change substantially as you're kicking ideas around. And the framework of this story actually comes from a pitch that was a Spock and McCoy story. And Margaret said, she liked the basic idea, but she said, we've had other McCoy and Spock stories. Let's do something different. Let's do a Spock and Chapel story.
So she was the one that brought up the idea.
Yeah, and so as soon as she said, let's do a Spock and Chapel story instead of a Spock and McCoy story, I was like, wow, this is good. And then, And then
the dynamic's even different because of the failed Kolinar, and she's always had this love for him. Yeah.
And so then it became, it became a Chapel story. It was like, and this was part of what came out of my discussions with Margaret, was that this was going to be a story to let Chapel kick ass and have her be a more modern character, because obviously Chapel in the original series was written in ways that were the way women characters were written in the 60s, and she was often, needed help. She was, made bad decisions, whatever. She wasn't the strongest person as written in the original series, and we wanted to really let her shine. And of course, her brief appearances in the movie series portrayed her as a much stronger person and being an officer and doctor and having more responsibilities. And but then one thing, we see her in Star Trek the Motion Picture,
right?
And then she disappears.
Yeah.
And then she turns up in Star Trek 4 in and she's working for it's like she's working in Starfleet Command or something. She's directing emergency stuff or something. I don't know. It's kind of vague what she's doing. It's a very small role. And so in the course of the movies, we don't really know.
I never realized we didn't see her in 2.
No.
Yeah, she just disappears.
I never realized that.
And so
isn't that weird?
So there's a sort of a loose end there. It's like, well, so she became a doctor, she was on the Enterprise, but then it seems as though, at some point she left Enterprise, and then at some point she seems to have maybe left practicing as a physician to focus on being a Starfleet officer. And so Margaret was interested in kind of playing off of that and seeing what sort of transition there might have been for her to move in that direction. And so one of my challenges, and it was so much fun, was to kind of connect the dots of this character. How can I write this character, have her be true to the performance that we saw in the original series, but then also make her a more modern character and let her be a stronger character character, let her make some decisions about her life that are more proactive and about her, instead of being about Spock or about her fiancé, Roger Corby, and all that stuff. And so I just had a lot of fun. And I was, I found myself that the way I wrote Chapel was kind of informed by Major Barrett Roddenberry's performances as Loxwana Troy. Because that allows you to see, imagine if Major Barrett Roddenberry had been able to portray Chapel with some more sass, like Loxwana. And so I really wanted Chapel to be a strong character and kick ass. And so, I gave her some action scenes and really had some fun with her.
And isn't that
she did?
Isn't that the joy of the Trek lit universe, that you could take somebody like Christine Chapel and center the whole thing around her?
Yeah, I was,
or
so
Kevin, or to a lesser extent Kevin Riley, somebody like that, or Finnegan, or somebody.
Well, you're able to flesh out characters that didn't have that much substance to them in the show. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I was so glad that Margaret had the idea to shift it from Spock and McCoy to Spock and Chapel, and then
it worked so well.
And not Spock and Chapel. I should be saying Chapel and Spock, because I definitely, Chapel's the lead character, and
Spock was he was just there,
and he's kind of confused. He's still dealing with his his issues,
trying to figure out his own little path.
Because that's the thing that
there's a question I have for you guys, for all of you. All right, the motion picture. I'm actually a fan of that movie, unlike a lot of people. I don't mind the pacing and everything, but we've talked about this because I remember seeing it in the theater in 1979, so it's going to hold a very special place in heart.
When I came out of seeing it in the theater in 1979, I couldn't stop smiling. My face hurt from smiling because I was so happy to see these old friends back again.
And that's why I will never say that scene with Scotty flying the pod around the Enterprise is too long. No. Because that was...
by today's filmmaking standards, it is. But
right.
Then,
but for 1970, and the first time seeing that ship on the big screen, that was boner/female boner central.
I've got very mixed feelings about the motion picture. I loved it when I first saw it because
the soundtrack is phenomenal.
It was
Gary Goldsmith killed it with the soundtrack.
And as years went by, and I got further removed from the just astonishing joy of having Star Trek back, I became more able to see the flaws of the film. But
it's just so interesting because of a director like of the stature of Robert Wise.
Yeah, and I think that maybe part of it was, maybe he just didn't get Star Trek in
I think he was also rushed.
And there was all sorts of, the behind-the-scenes stuff on that movie is just insane. But, one of the most important pivotal moments in any of the Star Trek characters' entire lives is buried in that movie when Spock holds Kirk's hand and says, V'ger can't understand this simple feeling.
Right.
That is like the most profound thing that has happened to any of those characters, and it kind of got lost in the slow kind of pacing that there was in the film. And that scene to this day just gives me shivers when I think of Spock's realization there. I mean, it's like through the original series, his whole character was set up as that he had this huge internal conflict between his human and Vulcan natures. And he has this experience with V'ger, and he gets it. He suddenly he has this revelation, and then you see in Star Trek II, you see how that revelation, Nimoy got it, of course. You see how that informs his later characterization of Spock. It's a very different Spock. It's a Spock who is much more at peace with himself, and So that...
And it's also the same Spock when you see him in Star Trek 2, when he's starting to... Actually, Star Trek 6 is a better example. When he really starts to understand and he's trying to get through to...
Kirk.
Who's the other... I'm sorry?
Kirk.
No, the other Vulcan.
Valeris?
Valeris.
Oh,
Yeah.
Valeris. When he's trying to sink it into Valeris that there's more to logic. There's more to life than logic. There is more to... That he's so much more accepting of his other side.
But the whole reason I brought... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so that was one thing that I enjoyed playing with in the novella, was that he was still going through this period of kind of reassessing, and so then that led to being able to do some fun stuff between Chapel and Spock, because she's already made her peace with how she feels about Spock, and she's grown and she kind of knows how she feels about Spock, but now Spock is the confused one. So there's this kind of flip, because he's kind of confused about his place in the world, and she's more sort of making decisions about what she's going to do, and she's not the confused one anymore like she was back in the original series. But so, Nick, what was your...
Yeah, no, the reason I brought it up is because you had talked about continuity and all of that stuff.
I heard
that whole scene where he holds up his hand and they say, you have not achieved Kolinar.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell was that set? Because was that on Vulcan? Because it sure doesn't look like anything else we've ever seen of Vulcan. With all the moons that are like the size of Neptune right there, and the statues that are like, the size of the Empire State Building, and that scene has always bugged me for some reason. That and the fact that the Vulcan Master is pissed off at Spock because he feels the call of V'ger. You're supposed to have no emotion, but yet you're pissed off at Spock. Am I the only one that got that she was pissed off at him?
She was very disappointed, and
she's supposed to be the High Master.
Yep. Well, Vulcans.
They'll always be better than Vulcans.
Vulcans are just a mess of contradictions, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Well, they are emotional people.
Right.
They are very emotional, except they try to hide it, and some of them are successful.
And that's why the
hiding their
Rihansu are better, because they don't try to hide it. Just saying.
So, but what I've been on a kick where I'm reading a lot of Star Trek books, and I have read a few lately that actually have Christine Chapel in them, and reading your book and then having those other books in mind, I can see what happens in your book, how it evolves her into becoming the person that I get to know in those other books. Let's see, it was one of the Lost Era, the Sojourn.
Soju? Oh, that's an amazing drink. If you ever go to
that one dealt with with Sulu and the crew of the Excelsior, where she's chief medical officer, but she's also
Sulu. You mean George Ticket? Never mind. I'm not even going to start.
Stop.
Scott, you have not listened to our last episode, have you?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, don't.
No, it's exceedingly popular with the fans because Terry and I go at it tooth and nail, like screaming and telling each other to fuck off.
It's a popcorn episode.
It was a popcorn episode.
About something as simple as one man's small opinion.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I do appreciate how your events kind of sort of sets her on this path that allows us to see her in this light in some of these other books. Because again, there's stories where she's aboard the Excelsior, and she is a stronger character there. And your book, although it may not have been wasn't meant to be a prequel to those, but it definitely adds that to it. And I just wanted to say I appreciate that, and it works. It works really, really well. I enjoyed it.
Before we run out of time, there's something I wanted to ask you, Scott, because you have been on our show quite a bit, and we thank you and Audio Vixen so much for you guys have never said no when we call on you to fill in for one of us. Mm-hmm. Outside of Star Trek, what maybe author or books, 1, 2, 3 that you can think of that you would tell people, hey, check this out? Because like right now I'm reading the Mercedes Thompson series by Patricia Briggs. That was recommended to me by Kelly Medding when I first started reading urban fantasy. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, it's awesome. But I'm also, I've discovered in the last year Neil Gaiman. I know I'm late on that, but God, wow. So yeah, something outside maybe.
So something that I've read that I've loved, is that the question?
Yeah,
outside of Star Trek?
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a sort of a steampunkish series called the Bookman Trilogy by, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. His first name is spelled Lavie, Lavi. His last name is Tidhar. So I don't know if it's Tidar or Tidar. Yeah, I'm not sure how his name is pronounced. But they are it's steampunk. It's just super action-oriented. Each book is kind of in a different subgenre. It's like one book is more of a spy thriller and one book is more of a horror story. And they're just so much fun, and there's lots of references to other Victorian characters, both fictional and real, and so jokes to a lot of other genre kind of things. They're just fabulous. I'm also reading another trilogy that I think the third book is due out next spring, and it's let's see. Whoop! I just lost. I was just bringing it up here online, so I make sure I get the name right, and I keep having trouble because the computer is not helping me.
Well, the link to Lavi or Lavi, or Tidhar, the Bookman series, I put into the chat room so Mike can get it into the show notes. And
so, the other books, there's the two books that are out are Crux and Nexus by Ramez Naam, Rameznam, and these are they're set in the near future, and it's basically the basic idea is that someone invents a drug that allows you to essentially install an operating system in your brain and run programs in your brain. And so it's very kind of matrixy and high-tech. So it's like an espionage thriller, high-tech sci-fi matrix thing, and they are just amazing. And those I highly recommend to anyone.
How's Audio Vixen doing with the news of the Cumberbatch engagement? Is she okay? I thought of her.
She's just fine.
Well, how about you, Scott? Do you have anything on deck coming up in the Star Trek world, or
nothing in the Star Trek world. I've got
and outside the Star Trek world.
Well, he made Takedown look good or read well, so that's something.
I was hoping to have something else I could tell you about by the time we were on the show, but I have a thing that I can't tell you about.
Okay, we promise we don't. We are very sensitive to the NDA thing, so no worries.
So it's another media tie-in project, but it is so outside of Star Trek that you just won't even believe it if it happens. But I'm waiting for final contracts, and then we'll see. But and then some of the other stuff I have going
Hawaii
on.
Five-0, CSI, Facts of Life, Family Feud.
Aren't Dayton Family Feud?
Hey,
aren't Dayton and Kev and Dave Mack working on 24?
Yeah. Well, but he's way outside of Star Trek.
Yeah. But then here's the one. Okay. The wacky thing I can tell you about is a friend of mine, a guy that I used to work with at my former day job, is now at a children's publishing company called The Creative Company, and they have an imprint called Black Rabbit Books, and they're developing a book program for reluctant readers in grades 4 through 12. And he's invited me to do some work with them. So these are science-themed books for reluctant readers, and so you're trying to entice them in with fun, wacky facts. And so I'm writing a number of books, very short books, on various invasive species.
Oh, very cool.
Oh,
that's
interesting.
Wise. Interesting.
And so, yeah, it's been...
Oh my gosh!
You need the rim shot sound effect there in the background. There.
Yeah, I'll figure something out. Oh my!
And so that's been fun. So I've been researching, Africanized honeybees and fire ants and stuff, and
oh man, that's cool.
And get to write little books about them, and so so that's fun.
How about the stink bug?
But these,
are you gonna do the stink bug? That's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
It's a huge problem here on the East Coast.
And are they an invasive species? Did they come from someplace else, or are they just...
They came from China.
Okay.
And
they
look like they're... This is not a lie. I'm not making a joke. They look like they're wearing samurai armor. They are like the ugliest, the worst, and they you see one in your house, that means you've got about 700 in your house. It's like really horrifying.
Yeah. So it's that is not one that I'm doing, but it's fascinating stuff. It's
now, are these? And I'm being a curious person now. Is it invasive species to the U.S. or are we talking invasive species globally?
The books that I'm writing are focused on the U.S.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And these are books for the school and library trade. They're not books that'll be out in the average bookstore. But it's really fun, fascinating stuff.
Well, it's.
Look in the chat.
It's an important one. I think it's an important one because anything that encourages reluctant readers to pick up a book and to, I mean that's fantastic. So congratulations, that's really awesome.
Neat.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that just kind of comes out of nowhere. Just someone gets in touch and says, "Hey, do you think you might want to do something like this?" and since I'm a geek and love science and weird insect kind of stuff, I was like, sure, that sounds interesting.
Sounds like fun. Yeah.
Now, do you have any conventions or anything you're going to be attending soon?
No, I don't. I don't do a lot of conventions. Mostly just because of the expense of it. But
right.
And
how about Audio Vixen? Will she be appearing anywhere? She's appearing on her own now. She's broken off.
She's
like Donnie and Marie without Donnie.
Nick, next time we ask Scott, we'll make sure he brings
Audio Vixen.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's just
she's looking forward to. There's going to be a big Supernatural convention here in the Twin Cities.
Yep.
I've never seen that show.
And Ella's a gargantuan fan of Supernatural, so she's been saving up and planning for.
Fun!
Awesome.
Yeah,
she probably enjoyed last night's episode or the most recent episode.
She did.
That was fun.
Yep. She had some.
A group of fans put on a play, a supernatural play, and it was all it was fan fiction written. It was just awesome.
Isn't that show in its 11th year or something?
10th year.
It just celebrated its 200th episode.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing for a show that really gets no publicity. And it's on
It has
CW?
a built-in fan base now. Yeah.
It's on CW, right?
And it keeps growing too.
And CW is really making strides with Arrow, Flash, Supernatural. They're really becoming kind of that kind of niche sci-fi comic network.
You mean the way that? Oh, okay.
Just don't. We've had this argument.
I'll be good.
Had this argument. How do you get them to bring it back?
Sorry, Scott. I try.
And I'm just looking forward to. Well, I'm hoping to be a guest
left and right. I just want to note it. She's picking fights.
I walked away. I'm sorry. Scott.
I'm looking forward to Convergence next summer. Hoping I'll be invited back again. It's a great convention here in the Twin Cities, and it's huge. There's, lots of people come. And
is
that's
that like the New York City or the Baltimore of the Midwest Comic-Con type thing?
Kind of. It's really big, and they get top name guests. And I got to meet Marina Sirtis last summer at the con. She was one of the guests, and I got a little time to chat with her. And it's just a lot of fun.
Neat, nice.
Well, you have to also remember, they get you. That's exclusivity. That is awesome.
The most fun.
They don't get Prince. They get you. They don't even ask Prince. They don't want him. They want you.
We had the one of the best moments that the kid and I had at the convention was I was on an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel, and it was very well attended. There was a few hundred people in the audience, and when we were kind of introducing ourselves on the panel and saying why we were there, what our qualifications for being on the panel was or something, and I said, well, I'm a fan of the show. I've been watching it, and just recently, I do a podcast with my daughter, and we did a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode about the first season. And when I said that I do a podcast with my daughter, there was all at once, the entire crowd went, "Aww." And so we got this
remember when you
response.
came up to me at Shore Leave and said you guys were thinking about it and wanted to pick my brain. You remember I squeed at how happy that made me. I think if my daughter was older, I swear, well, I don't think she'd be into it, but my daughter, evidently, I've called my ex-wife, I called to talk to my kids, and I hear this screaming in the background. I'm like, oh, God, what are they arguing about? Oh, no, Matthew's in his room. Well, then what's she screaming about? Oh, Syracuse basketball. What? She's like, and she'll tell me the players and how bad they suck or how awesome they are and this and that. And oh, my God, it's crazy. But
and you just want to talk to her about comic books.
Yeah, right? Well, that's the question I had. Do you guys watch Arrow, Scott?
No, I don't know why. I never.
Anymore.
Oh, please.
I can't talk to this man anymore.
I just never got around to watching it. I'm kind of even more curious about watching it now that he turned up in a cameo on The Flash.
Oh, it's amazing, the character development. And let me just say this, it's a show not afraid to kill people in the main titles.
And that's good. That's a good thing. Good. Yeah. Have you guys been watching The Flash and Gotham? And
love it.
Yes.
Love them both.
Gotham is a little hard to watch.
No, it's not.
I have a hard time watching Gotham.
Why?
I had to stop watching it. I stopped watching it 3 weeks ago, Michael. When was it? That episode I had to walk away from?
It
was a rough one.
Yeah, some of the episodes are a little rough.
How?
But
violent. Dude,
where?
You know me. Oh, don't even start.
It's 8 o'clock on a Monday night. Where is it violent?
Which is why we're wondering why it comes on at 7 o'clock on a Monday night.
Oh, Central, yeah. But
it's a little hard to watch, but I do enjoy it.
Robin Lord-Taylor is phenomenal as the Penguin. He is.
Yes.
He is the breakout. I think.
I do love what's her name as well. No, well, I do enjoy her, but the little thief.
Yeah.
Catgirl. Yeah.
Yeah, she becomes Catwoman.
Yeah, she's really
is she not a
amazing
dead ringer
actor.
for Michelle Pfeiffer?
She is, but we don't see her very often, but when we do, it's like, oh, I just love her.
Yeah.
It's just
she's a scene stealer. I'm hoping that she starts popping up more and more.
I think she will.
Yeah. I've been enjoying Gotham quite a bit. My main critique of it would be that I think that it's like so many of the future villains have shown up in this very small area. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of, it's hard to suspend my disbelief a little bit for that, but they're also doing such good jobs with them. I mean, the guy that plays Ed Nigma, I mean, he's great.
And you know what? I'm thinking every week, if I were him, I'd turn into the Riddler too.
Yeah.
Because they treat him like shit.
Yeah, and so.
But who knew Donnell Logue was such a good actor?
Oh yeah, he's great.
He is just week in and week out. Because I only knew him from his sitcom and stand up and stuff, and I'm just like, wow, who knew that this guy?
Did you not ever see? He was on a show, but it got canceled. I think even before it got through the first season. But it was just a couple years ago. Let me see. What was it? This is going to drive me crazy. No, I'm blanking on it. Let's see. I've almost got it. Perhaps, Nick, if you could just hum a little theme music here while I'm wasting our time looking up. Terriers. It was called Terriers.
Oh.
Like the dogs?
Like the dogs, yeah. It was called Terriers, and he played, I can't remember if he was a cop or a detective or if he was just kind of a hoodlum. I can't remember because I only saw a couple episodes. But it was this very funny and gritty show that was not given enough time to find its audience. And he was so great in there, and I would bet that the reason that he got this role is because whoever was doing the casting saw him in that role. And
yeah, he's really, there's some really good stuff. Now, you asked about one thing I really enjoy about Flash is Arrow is a very serious show. I mean, it's got great humor. Felicity has great humor in it, but Flash is very tongue-in-cheek and
it's lighthearted.
It's very It's
yes.
a great counterbalance to the darkness.
The dark of Gotham.
Well, in the dark of Arrow, since those two are in the
Arrow is in the middle compared to
Gotham.
To Gotham.
Yeah, I know. I tweeted one week on Gotham. Oh my God, the sun is out. I really did. But yeah, I like that about Flash, and I like the fact that they've got this now. They've got the two teams, and there's been crossover, and so they've got this going for them, and they're building a nice little world there between those two shows. I figure it's only a matter of time until Nightwing gets a show.
That would be cool.
So that they have Star City, Central City, and then Bloodhaven. So they have like the little, you know what I mean? That just might be me.
No, yeah, that would be, it'd be interesting to see some more.
But by the same token, I don't want them to burn. But I think the beautiful thing is the CW is not adding to the perceived glut because it's CW and people to their own detriment don't take it seriously. Am I misreading that? But I just get the feeling people don't take CW seriously, and they're slipping in with some really good character shows.
Yeah.
I think they're being taken seriously enough now that Sci-Fi has decided that they've made a mistake. So, we'll see where that takes it.
You had to slip it in, didn't you?
I did.
You had to slip it in.
Well, you kept laying out the damn red carpet for me.
You could be the big person.
It's true. I mean, if you wanted any genre show, you've turned on CW. I mean, it used to be Sci-Fi, and they've suffered for it. So, I mean, hey, they're at least they're trying. But based on what I've seen so far, I'm not overly impressed with what Sci-Fi is delivering. They're trying, though.
I like Dominion.
Dominion wasn't bad.
Well,
Defiance is pretty good.
We really need to tie things up.
Thank you so much, Scott, for putting up with our madness.
Oh, thanks for
We adore having you on. And where can people follow you on Twitter?
Oh, they can follow me at S. Michael Pearson.
Well, pardon us.
See?
I had to because some other Scott Pearson had the nerve to sign up on Twitter before I did. So
son of a bitch.
Yeah. So I had to go with I had to come up with some variation. So I went with the first initial middle name. So S. Michael Pearson, and then of course there's also the at Generations Geek that you can follow. And but oh my gosh, I've been so bad at social media the last month or two, as I've been both incredibly busy and then also, busy on stuff that for a long time they weren't at the point where I could talk about them publicly yet. Yeah. And so there's been, days days and days and days go by without me saying anything online.
Well,
but,
do us a favor, and when you can talk about some of the things and the projects that you've got coming up, give us a ring. We'd love to have you back on.
Oh, I'd love to be back on. And yeah, and I don't think I could get away with being on again without having the kid with me.
Yeah.
Because
I can't wait to meet her as well.
When I said that I was
going to... You guys cover for me enough, I have to think.
Oh, yeah. Did she give you the what for?
When I said that I was going to be on as a guest, she kind of assumed that she would be on as well.
I did too.
And I said, well, I think this one I'm going to do is, on my own, and so she understood, but I'm actually surprised. I think she forgot that it was tonight, because I'm surprised that she hasn't popped in to say hello. She's been down in her room all this time, so she's down there, probably, she's a 21st century kid, so she's probably got something on TV, and then she's on her laptop, and she's watching, Tumblr, and she's tweeting, and she's, FaceTiming, and she's, doing all this stuff at once with the, yeah.
But you know what you did, though?
What did I do?
When you told her that you were, coming on by yourself, you pulled a Russell Hammond from everybody, from Almost Famous.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
That's it.
Billy Crudup's character.
That's a deep cut. I don't remember that.
He was the guitarist. Remember they were all mad because he was the front of the T-shirt. He got all the.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I love that movie.
Well, I have to
just real quick, Mike. It's a movie with Kate Hudson, Zooey Deschanel, and Anna Paquin. What's not to love?
Well, I wanted Scott to come on the show to talk about his books and stuff, but I also wanted him to be free to swear if he wanted to.
And I think I'm the only
God
one who
damn
has.
it, I haven't done any swearing.
No,
well, now that she's almost 17, isn't she free to swear, or is Dad going to say no?
No, she
still be the man, holding her down.
No, she'll. It's kind of funny when she has some of her droogs over to the house here, and they're just so it's like this little herd of teenagers doing stuff, and they don't necessarily remember or are aware that I'm hovering around someplace nearby, and then the words are all flying as you expect them to.
Yeah.
And so
disappointed if they didn't.
Yeah.
I would be too.
I haven't necessarily heard her do much swearing, but I've heard her friends swear. But I remember there was that time, at a certain age, it's like you don't want to. It's like you're not going to admit to your parent,
right.
Because there was at some point there was something, I don't know, there was somehow the subject of swearing came up, and I said something to the effect of, well, you're a teenager, you've heard all this from your friends at school, and she just kind of like didn't say anything, just kind of it's like she wasn't going to acknowledge that one way or the other, but
well, it's funny.
On top of it,
it's funny that you say that because my parents can talk all day long about, I did this as a kid, I did that as a kid. Let me tell you, I was a saint compared to my parents. There's the story about my father getting picked up. His car broke down, and his father goes to pick him and his buddy up at the garage for the car. So my grandfather walks in and says to the mechanic, "Where are they?" "Oh, they're with their girlfriends up on the car, up on the lift." Making out. But then there's the time my mother, my dear little mother, who whenever she wants to say anything about me, I say, "Oh, really? Am I the one that got lost in the woods and the New Jersey State Police had a plane and a helicopter and people combing the woods because I decided to go for a walk in the woods?"
That's funny.
Okay, so
Love it.
let's not. So we don't want to.
Give him ideas. No, you don't give him ideas.
She's a good kid.
She is.
Audio Vic's a good kid. It's not like she drove the car off the road.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, inside baseball there that we're not going to get into.
we went out with some friends the other night, and and they're also parents, and somehow they got to talking about every parent has this story about the kid that can just never go to sleep, but if you drive the kid around in a car, they go. And I of course said, "Yeah, I go right off in a car as well." And but it was a little too soon for my wife for me to make that joke. But
you think?
Yeah,
I'm thinking that it might be one of those things where it will never be it will never be.
It'll never be
right.
soon.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's a very strange. You know, it was such a surreal experience, and then at the of course, I just realized that the listeners have no idea what we're talking about. But
that's okay. That's for the best.
I mean, the kid and I were joking right after it happened. I mean, within a half an hour, we were just.
That's because she has your sense of humor.
Because it was just so surreal, and there we were. We were sitting with our belongings in a heap. In a gravel sports bar parking lot in the middle of nowhere off the freeway, waiting for my mom to come pick us up because
I am so calling you Clark Griswold from now on.
It happened to be only about a half an hour drive or so from where my mom lives, so she was able to come pick us up afterward, and yeah, so we were just standing there on this beautiful sunny day, and with our our stuff in bags soaked with pop because we had bottles of pop in the car that broke.
Well, we are pleased that no one was hurt, and that your Pink Floyd The Wall CD survived.
Oh, yep. They both play without skipping, even though they're quite scuffed up.
That's awesome.
Well, my dear, thanks again for joining us, and
Thank you.
we will talk to you again very soon. I love talking to you, and I can't wait to meet Audio Vixen in the future.
I will tell her that she has
to
come
awesome.
again. Yeah. All right.
Tell her we were heartbroken that she wasn't on the show, and watch her just give you the look.
Oh yeah, I'll get the look definitely.
Yes.
We'll have you come back on soon. So thank you,
Nick. Take us out.
And that does it for another supplemental log of the G&T show. And remember, you heard it here first, folks. That Jennifer Lawrence, that kid's going to be a big star one day.
She's got something.
She's got a little something. I don't know what it is. That girl's got it. She's going to be a big star one day. Remember, you heard it here first. Terry, say good night.
Good night.
Michael.
Kapla.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Joe Lontrue.
G&T Show is a Busy Little Beaver production.
Music for the G&T show is provided by Warp 11, Grethor, 5 Year Mission, and Andrew Allen's Smooth Federation.